Drama of the highest order. The governor of Nyeri County, Kahiga, comes out with a few remarks in the Kikuyu language that most Kenyans do not want to believe. Kenyans are in shock. And then things start moving very quickly in response to those remarks by Kahiga. But then, Kenyans have become just too smart these days to fall for such things. The whole thing was a setup. There was a very clear objective. And that is what my show is about. Because I will give you some details I'm sure you do not have that will shock you to your bones. Folks, it seems that the Raila Odinga factor remains very firmly in Kenyan politics and seems to be affecting Kenyan politics many, many days after we buried this great Kenyan. Well, karibuni sana to my show today. Please enjoy. Twende kazi. When you want to catch something, you have to make sure that whatever you want to catch does not see the hook. Once they see the bait and they say, yes, that is something we want, but look at the hook behind it, you're done. They will never fall into your trap. And what that means is that you have been defeated. The very, very big political news in Kenya right now is that William Samoei Ruto's plans for 2027 have been very clearly exposed in public. People know exactly what he wants to do, exactly what he's doing, and that means that his plan is finished. And in my opinion, any hopes he may have had of sneaking back into the presidency after 2027, poof, gone. Let me explain. And you know, this happened in a very strange, interesting way. The governor of the good people of Nyeri County came out and made some remarks in the Kikuyu language that shocked Kenyans to the core. It even shocked the Murima people even more than most people realize. He said that actually Raila Odinga passing on was God intervening to save Murema from the consequences of Raila Odinga, his union with Ruto, taking away all the resources from the Mount Kenya region and going to Nyanza. Therefore, in short, it was a good thing that Raila passed on. Now, just think about it for a minute. Even if there was somebody you hated very much, your worst enemy, would you make any such remarks after they passed on? It is not African. We don't even speak ill of the dead. And so we have to conclude that these were very desperate remarks with a very desperate objective. That should be very clear. Okay? Now, apart from my sources, who very quickly confirmed exactly what I was thinking was correct, okay, online, people exposed the truth. There are so many commentators online who said that actually these were not the words of Governor Kahiga. No. He had obviously been sent to speak like that, and with very, very clear objectives. Okay? And of course the objective was to cause enmity, a lot of enmity, between two great communities of our dear country, the Kikuyu and the Luo. Now, I think it is important we understand why this is linked to the 2027 presidential elections and why it is so important to do everything possible to ensure that going into the 2027 presidential elections, the Luo community and the Kikuyu are not anywhere near each other, let alone any unity of these two communities. And it is all about electoral numbers for politics. Allow me to take you back a little. When Moi was struggling in very serious trouble in 1992 with the United Ford Party, the shortcut to destroying Ford and destroying the unity of the opposition was to separate these two same communities. And that is why Ford split into Ford Kenya, which had a lot of our Luo brothers in it, Luo Luya, and Ford Asili, which was really a Murema party, with Kenneth Matiba. That was very deliberate and very strategic. If we can go even further back in history, the moment that the Agikuyu joined forces with the Luo community, people like Mboya on one side, Agwin Skodek, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga for the Luo, and then on the other side, Jomo Kenyatta and the others. The moment that happened, Kenya was able to remove the colonialist pop and win its independence. I think now we all get it. And please let us not allow our emotions into this very important analysis. The truth is, the naked truth, is that if you want to do something major in Kenya, if you bring together these two communities, the Luo and the Kikuyu, game shot, it's done. And fast forwarding to the present, a Luo Kikuyu unity will send Ruto home very early. As the polling stations open, Ruto will already be on his way to Sugoi. I believe that is clear now. And so we should understand why it is so important. And I've been saying on this channel that there are very spirited efforts to bring enmity between these two great communities of our country, where there's really no issue. Okay, those who came before us did some crazy things. Yeah, there were issues between the communities, but that's history. Okay? Right now, there are no issues. In fact, if you do your research, you will find that these days, Kikuyu lasses have a weakness for Luo men. That is the truth. Okay? So there's no issue. But now, because of the politics, somebody is trying to bring in an issue. Somebody is trying to bring in issues. But this thing failed in a very spectacular manner. And I want us to look briefly at why it failed. The biggest mistake, because you can be crafty, you can be clever, but also at the same time, you make a major blunder in your craftiness and in your smartness. Okay? The major mistake made here was something called the timing. The fact that patriot, legend, Raila Amolo Odinga had just passed on, that made it impossible for anything like what they were trying to start to gain any traction. Why? Because believe it or not, Raila Odinga had massive admiration from Murema people. You see, if there's one thing Murema people appreciate, it is braveness. They love brave people. They get attached, they have a weakness for people who are brave. And I believe that is a word that can describe the departed Raila Amolo Odinga very well. If I can be allowed to speak on behalf of my Murema people, as Kumekucha Karaoke, I will say the following. Sisi watu wa Murema hatuna shida na Jaruo. Jaruo ni rafiki yetu. Kwanza bado tunalia machozi nyingi kwa sababu ya Raila Amolo Odinga. Amefanya mambo nyingi. Hata huko Murema amefanya mambo nyingi, ako na marafiki wengi. Hakuna siku sisi tunaweza anza vita nao ndugu zetu. Sahau. Hata huyo Kahiga ako na issues zake. Na mkumbuke kwamba sisi watu wa Murima tukishikilia point moja hatutokangi hapo. Hata ufanye ni hata uwashe moto hatutoke hapo. Na point yetu sahihi ni Ruto must go home. Hatuna point nyingine. Hatuna point nyingine na hakuna kitu kingine tunataka. He must go home. Hizo vitu zingine ni details. Hiyo tu ndo tunataka. I hope I've represented my Murima brothers and sisters well, because according to my research, that is their feeling. So the timing was very wrong. There was no way it was going to fly. Okay? But then I guess somebody thought, since we are doing this at a time when a lot of emotions are flying all over the place, it will gain traction. People will get very angry and they will achieve the objective. They will start a war between the Luo and the Kikuyu. I believe that is what somebody thought. But they were gravely mistaken. They were wrong. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo. But now I am going to shock you. I'm sorry, you'll have to sit down for this one. I'm going to tell you about Ruto's next move. After this plan had succeeded, the thing which was going to happen next quickly. And that is a merger of the UDA party and the ODM party, so that they become one new political party. Yeah. Oh yes, that was a plan. Indeed, as we speak, that is still the plan in the works, to merge these two parties. This merged two parties that will become one party is the vehicle that Ruto envisages using to win the 2027 presidential elections. Now, of course, there's a lot of resistance already from within the ODM. Yeah, that one is going to be very difficult to sell. But I believe the thinking of Ruto handlers is because Ruto did so much for Raila's send-off, the funeral, state funeral, etc., etc. At least some people will have a soft spot to allow this thing to happen. Okay? But of course, again, he is mistaken. But I want you to see how it would have worked easily. Yeah, in another circumstance, with some other timing, and doing some other things. Imagine a situation where there's a lot of animosity in the country between Murima and the lake, our Luo brothers and sisters. That would be the perfect situation for Ruto to come in and say that the lake also needs to be protected from the Murima. And therefore the best way of doing that is to merge the UDA party with the ODM party, and thus fully protecting the lake from Murima. Now, I'm sure you're asking me, protect the lake from what? Imagine that is also my question. But this is the narrative. This is the rhetoric, yeah, that is being built up. You've seen what is happening on social media. The bulbs being shot towards us, the Murima, including me. Kumekucha karaoke. Because we're all Kikuyu, aren't we? Ama mmesahau. And there is something else about this latest drama. You see, already there was a build-up. You'll remember, as we were burying Raila Amolo Odinga, there was a lot of chatter online about why Gachagua is not attending the funeral, or where is Gachagua? Why is Gachagua nowhere to be seen? I'm sure you remember that. And of course, nobody remembered Gachagua's chilling warning to Raila Amolo Odinga to be very careful with the people he's dealing with, the people he's decided to work with. I'm sure many of us remember that. Now, there was this very spirited effort to start creating this narrative early. Even at the funeral, a lot of effort was made to ensure that people from the Murima don't speak. And Raila had a lot of friends from Murima. Yeah, in fact, it is a miracle that they allowed Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta to speak. Yeah, I believe that was the insistence of the family. Uhuru was very close to Raila's family. There was no way he could fail to speak. I believe that was the only reason. Otherwise, even the former president would have been blocked. Because, remember, Martha Karua, Raila Odinga's running mate in 2022, was at the burial. She was not allowed to speak. Of all people, she was not allowed to speak. And of course, the main reason, she was from Murima. And of course, I'm sure she would have received very warm cheers from the crowd as she stood up to speak. That could not be allowed. Indeed, when Uhuru was cheered so much, it was embarrassing, because the president did not receive the same warmth, despite all these things he had done, for the Raila burial. Now, all this is super fascinating, because one of the very last major politicians Raila spoke to before he passed on was, wait for this one, Rigathi Gachagua. Details of that are in my very latest, highly sensitive special report. More on that later. And so, Gachagua should have been allowed to operate freely. Gachagua should even have been allowed to speak at the funeral, if this thing was with a clean heart. But it wasn't. This was a well-written government script. And the whole idea is to make as much as possible from the goodwill built over a long lifetime of suffering of Raila Amolo Odinga. How unfair is that? How unfair? How heartless is that? But that was the whole idea. I hope you're still not doubting that the comments, the very uncouth and called for comments of the Nyeri governor, were not scripted. He had not been told what to say. I hope you're still not doubting, because there is too much evidence to suggest the same. Let me give you some more information that you may not have. You know, Nyeri has got some very smart people, including smart politicians, who can easily present a better image of Nyeri. And you need to know today that Bwana Mutahi Kahiga would never have been governor of Nyeri without the help of William Samuel Ruto. His hand was held, many things were done here, including a few pops, and so on and so forth, so that he became governor. And therefore, this man has to follow instructions. So he was instructed to say these things, and he said them. Something else. Do you know the first person to post these very unfortunate comments on social media? It was a man called Dennis Ole Itumbi. I don't think I need to say anymore. It is very clear. And you see, Ruto even used his people in ODM to follow up on it. Gladys Wanga came out with a statement from ODM, which came out too quickly, because ODM people were supposed to be busy mourning the passing on of Raila. But then they came out immediately with a statement. Of course, the whole idea here was to attract even more attention to that statement for those who had missed it, to attract attention to it. And then they had even choreographed removing Mutahi Kahiga from his post within the Council of Governors. I believe where he was the deputy. He resigned. That whole drama was supposed to attract attention to this. And then meanwhile, on the ground, the enmity between these two communities would continue growing at a very fast rate. That was the whole idea. But it fell flat on its face. You know, there's something else. There's another reason why this failed. It is the season. This is a very dangerous season. I keep on saying on this channel, and it is nothing but the truth. It is not only a season of exposure, but it is also a season of judgment. It's a season of many drastic, dramatic changes. In fact, if you take a bird's eye view of the whole East African region, what is happening? In Uganda, Museveni, I'm very reliably informed, is very sick. In Tanzania, they're supposed to have a general election on 29th of October. most citizens in that country are not going to vote. They're not going to participate in that election. Because that election, the main challenger of President Suluhu is President Suluhu. So why have an election? Why waste the money on an election? Yeah, just coronate her. Yeah? And you see, even more interesting, the main opposition leader, Tundu Lissu, has finally, conveniently, been set free by the High Court of that country. Yeah, I believe that happened yesterday. And Tundu Lissu has refused to leave jail. Why? Because he points out quite rightly that this whole drama was to keep him from participating in those presidential elections. Now he's being released on the eve of those elections. He will not get out of jail until after the elections are over. Yeah, the few people in the country will vote. Yeah, the elections are due on 29th of October, just a few days. Yeah. So we can predict that in Tanzania there's going to be massive change very soon. In Uganda, there's going to be massive changes very soon. Okay? And the sad news is that wale watu wa homa ya mchina are the people who have got their major candidates in those countries. Okay? They're the ones financing those candidates. However, remember, Kenya is the main country. And you see, in politics, a wave can come that is too strong, that even if you represent some certain people, you'll find it impossible to push the agenda because of the strong wave in the region. Yeah, because the truth is, in the East African region, when Kenya gets a cold, Tanzania and Uganda also have a very serious cold. They don't only sneeze, they have a serious cold. Kenya affects our neighbors because Kenya is the epicenter. Kenya is the giant of the region. And so, this is a season when there's massive change on our doorstep. We have recently lost Raila Odinga. That is the end of an era. And you know, the way we human beings are, the loss of Raila is going to inspire very many freedom fighters. That one you can take to the bank. And therefore, in my opinion, this is going to speed up change, not slow it down. Speed it up tremendously in the region. Therefore, having these old tactics of trying to divide people, these old colonial tactics of trying to divide people, trying to panga watu na kuseti watu, will not work in this season. Wrong season. It won't work. Yeah, that's a given. And therefore, what we should expect very shortly, yeah, especially in our dear country, is an even closer working relationship between the Luo community and we people in the Murema. Please remember, this is the channel where you first heard that prediction. That is exactly what is going to happen. The very opposite of what some people are planning. In fact, this thing which those people did is going to speed up. It's going to be the trigger. It's going to be the inspiration for closer working relationships between these two great communities of Kenya. And as we have said, and even spiritually, once these two communities are together as one, there is no change which we want in Kenya which will not happen. I mean, that's how we got a new constitution, yeah, despite a lot of battles here and there. So when these two communities join together, kwisha maneno, we're going to achieve everything and more of what we want in the brand new Kenya that we all dream of. We're going to be able to drain the swamp. Oh yes. All politicians went to nyumbani, with very few exceptions. Okay, all that is going to be achieved. So, that is the good news from this very, very sad development. This very sad, that somebody would have thinking like this. Yeah, we have just lost a great man, and then you come in with something like this. I don't know what to say. Anyway, let me not get emotional. Now, As I had said earlier, one of the last meetings the great Raila had with a major opposition leader was with the Gachagua people. Okay, and of course the big question there is, what were they discussing? Well, at least you can get some more information in my very latest highly sensitive special report. And I still have that offer of getting permanent, forever, golden key that allows you to get everything Kumekucha without fail. Okay, includes the special reports, weekly intelligence briefings, and also the other highly valuable documentaries we produce, like the one of how to prosper in a dead economy, etc., etc. Yeah, you can see details on your screens right now. It's only Kenya shillings 6,555. Pop! You have the golden key. You will never ever again need to worry about payment for anything Kumekucha. And as I pointed out in my previous video, it was courtesy that I brought back this offer, because I had received appeals from many of you that you had not really gotten a chance to be able to get this golden key. So please take full advantage. In another 2 or 3 days, it will be poof, gone forever. Yeah, for sure. So please take action today if you're in a position to. Use the telephone number you see on your screens right now. It is the usual M-Pesa telephone number. And then don't forget to send me your email address. You can send me an email or even SMS to the same number that you've M-Pesa'd. Yeah, giving me details of your email address so that I can send it pronto. Okay? All for a better Kenya. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.